up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It is the aftermath, and the first time in 7 weeks. Is it 7? Yeah. We are going to aftermath after a Patriots win. They take a 25-22 decision over the New York Jets. And if you look at the fine print, there might be a lot of Jets ineptitude that contributed to this win, but at this juncture, you're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Jacoby Brissett after the game, after coming in relief of Drake Maye.
Yeah, it's exciting. Winning in the NFL is hard. I know y'all don't think that, but it's hard. And the guys have worked hard throughout the season. It's a great learning tool for young guys. If we just stay the course, stick with the process, sometimes you get lucky enough and the ball bounces your way.
We're going to get to the Drake Maye injury. We're going to get to the drops. We're going to get to the notion that this is a resilient team and no longer soft. All of that in the next few minutes. First, let's bring in Phil Perry. And the first question, Senator, is what was the vibe in the locker room? What did this mean to this team at this time?
Very happy. Linebacker Christian Ellis called the room ecstatic. You could hear the celebrations going on after the fact as we sort of waited to get in there to the locker room post-game. And so very happy. And you can understand why. It's been a long time since they experienced a win. They actually are getting a victory Monday, Tom, for the first time this season. So they'll have Monday and Tuesday off before coming back to work before their game against the Titans on Wednesday. So they were fired up. And, quite frankly, they should be. Because if you can't enjoy a win as bad as the Jets are right now, if you're the Patriots and you can't enjoy this one, what is already, we know, going to be a long, hard season, it gets even longer and harder. So have at it if you're the Patriots, in my opinion.
And yet, there will be those of us, and probably tiny percentages of both of us, who say, yeah, but, you kind of wandered into that win thanks to the Jets. Let's not get too high over this. There's still fundamental problems. You had wide receivers who were in the crosshairs all week who dropped football after football. If they ended up with fewer points today than the New York Jets, if the final score was 22-17, would it still have been a moral victory?
No, but you could say at least that they showed some improvement when it comes to the quote-unquote toughness aspect of their game, in my opinion. They allowed 4.0. Mayo came back at me today, so I think it was actually 3.9. It was 3.96 yards per carry that they allowed on the ground. So good for them. That's an improvement. It wasn't 185 yards on the ground that they allowed, which was what they had been averaging over the course of the last 3 games. So they were better there. I thought they ran the ball at times more effectively than they had against the Jacksonville Jaguars and London, and that they had in weeks previous. I know the average yards per carry was not good, but they end up with 2 hard-nosed touchdowns from Ramondre Stevenson, including the game winner. And the kicking game wasn't perfect, but they made some big plays there. Nice long return, 62-yard return from Marcus Jones that helps them get set up for Ramondre Stevenson's first touchdown. So they were better after being called soft. And us knowing, you and I knowing, and Patriots fans, I think, knowing what the definition of tough football has meant here for a long time under Bill Belichick, and continues to be the definition here with Jerod Mayo as head coach, which is run the ball, stop the run, cover kicks. They were better in those 3 phases. So I do think even if they had lost this game, we'd look at it and say, they're bad. They're not a good team. They're not going to be able to beat good teams or teams with this much talent that Jets have. But it doesn't mean they can't get a little bit better in these critical areas, and I thought they did.
A little bit better, continuing to get better, because a little bit better is about the best they can do. They're not going to have a sweeping improvement, but you see incremental improvement on the offensive line, which I can't wait till you get into it and go into it on the breakdown, how well they did or didn't do on the offensive line in terms of protecting Drake Maye, in terms of opening holes for him to run 3 times for 48 yards. We'll get into his final run and what that resulted in soon. But the offensive line has, as a good measuring stick of where this team was and has potential to get. Not overall. This is not, the 2001 Rams offensive line with, Ogden and Pace and everybody else. He didn't play for them. Be that as it may. The point I'm trying to make is bad things can get better. Okay? So we can see some real improvement in areas that they need to, but the receivers are in the crosshairs all week long. And part of me looks at this performance today in which there were at least 5 drops, maybe 6 from the wide receivers. And I think to myself, y'all just made it that much hard. I just yelled. You all just made it that much harder on yourselves over the last 2 or 3 weeks by talking and talking and talking. Life is so much easier if you just wander out onto the field and play the game the way you know you can, instead of setting the bar for yourselves at any other level than I'm just here to do my job.
This is it's going to be a fun group to follow all year, isn't it, Tom? It's going to be our guy, Kayshon Boutte, is still can't miss audio every time he speaks. 2 drops. Kendrick Bourne, all the credit in the world to you being accountable for dropping passes. 2 drops. Tyquan Thornton, bad drop down the field. We knew it at the time. We knew it as they were talking. You listen to Kayshon Boutte this week. You were in the room with him. You come out and you're shaking your head and you're sort of laughing to yourself. What's going on there? Kayshon Boutte just can't help himself. It's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It is ridiculous given that they're clearly not doing everything off the field they need to be doing. Javon Baker misses curfew before that game in London on Saturday night before the game. They have to make late changes where KJ Osborne suddenly in the lineup in uniform. They are a group that has a long way to go, and I think they should do exactly what you're saying, which is keep quiet, show up on Sundays, do the best you can, and who knows, Tom, they might get more production out of themselves than even they can imagine, because it looks like when he's not concussed that Drake Maye is going to be a really good quarterback who's the ability to elevate players who aren't that good. So you're lucky you're in this situation, quite frankly, half of them. And they still can't seem to get out of their own way. Great catch by Kayshon Boutte at the very end of the game. A little bit of a redemption for him in that regard. But, boy, they got a lot of improving to do.
Yeah, I mean, Boutte's probably a good player. I think that he has a future here. Tyquan Thornton, a clutch catch, also the drop. But I don't think he has a future here. KJ Osborne's probably going to be one and done. We'll see how long Kendrick Bourne is here. But they might have to overturn Jalen Polk. One would presume a second-round pick is going to stick for a while longer. We'll see what happens with Javon Baker. But all of these guys somehow feel like short-termers, and you got a team going a little far afield here that needs to renovate its offensive line, continue to renovate their wide receiver room, because I don't know how many sticky guys they have in there right now. Probably look at tight end, because God bless him, Hunter Henry got my game ball today for all the clutch catches he made. But he's an older player, and Austin Hooper is an older player who's not very productive. Plus, you have to look at the cornerback group. We'll get to that a little bit, too, with Marcus Jones. He was a liability today because it was a bad matchup for him. This game, however, would have hinged on the fact that the Jets have good receivers, measurably good receivers, and the Patriots don't. That's why the Jets were going to win the game despite playing horribly, because they had receivers and could get chunk plays on you. But before we get to all those other topics, Marcus Jones and Drake Maye's concussion, Jerod Mayo spoke about the noise and the chatter this week and whether or not it sank in, because I think it's germane to talk about Mayo now after the week scrutinizing his performance and where the team was headed.
I don't hear that stuff. You talk about adversity, talk about chatter. It will always be there. I think there's a difference between like noise and signals. So if I can pick up on signals of what's coming out the locker room from, you guys talking to the players, that's great. The rest of it's just noise.
Phil, what level of redemption do you think there is for Jerod Mayo? Again, it was a self-created, and a lot of this has been self-created. So by Mayo in his first year on the job, and he acknowledged, I'm going to have a lot of lessons to learn. So a lot of these issues, as with the receivers, he's created himself with some of his messaging. But to get the team to put forth a performance that seemed like a response to him and to escape with a win, is there a level of redemption is too strong, but it's like somebody threw him a life preserver.
Well, I guess it just depends on what you feel of the message initially. If you felt calling the players out and using that word that got so many people so up in arms, the white knighting this week between media people and former players in particular, it became eye roll inducing for me, quite frankly. And I had this takeaway after a conversation with my buddy Rob Ninkovich, and hopefully we'll get him on the next Pats podcast at some point in the near future. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a player and you are worth your salt when it comes to something like toughness, and you get challenged in that way, the reaction should be a good one. If you go in the tank after being called soft, you probably are. And so the fact that they showed up and they played the way that they played, yes, of course, did it create a media circus and did it create a distraction? It did for Mayo. But if you feel they won this game, if you thought this was a ballsy performance to some degree, you lost your best player. Drake Maye's your best player.
Easy.
You lost your best player middle of the game, before even the middle of the game, and you somehow come away with a long driving of the field, 2 third and longs converted by Jacoby Brissett because of beyond the pale performances in those moments by Jacoby Brissett, who no one here thought could play. Then you look at that and you say, well, you probably take the media distraction thing if you got the kind of performance from your team that you really wanted. So I don't know if redemption is the right word, but I do think this game is a positive reflection on Mayo. I don't think this is circumstantial, because I did think that was a game that took some balls for them to pull out. And so if we're gonna discredit the coach for having the team looking the way they did in bad performances, he makes a eye-opening statement, and you get something else out of these guys. I think you do have to give the coach some credit.
Yeah, they played with a level of desperation and urgency. How does this game differ, aside from the fact that they got a touchdown at the end, as opposed to not getting a touchdown at the end against the Miami Dolphins? These two games are kind of similar, but even if they hadn't scored in a similar way to the way the Dolphins game ended up, the tenor was different. Like, I don't know if I'm making this point correctly. The Dolphins game was a humiliating loss because of how bad they were the prior week. So to lose to that team, and to lose when you just, in the last 5 minutes or so, decided to really get urgent about it, it didn't move the needle. Even if they hadn't scored today, and they were trying hard not to at some junctures. I mean, the Jacoby Brissett read option was a bizarre call.
I actually thought it was a good call. He would have had a walk-in touchdown.
I thought he was one-on-one with
walk-in touchdown.
I thought he was one-on-one with Dexter Reed or whoever it was out there.
Oh, I don't know. You probably had a better replay than me. I just thought to myself, boy, if they could just actually hold on to the football, they might have actually scored there.
But the tenor seems different than that loss. Even though the circumstances at the very end are similar, Patriots scored in this one being the big difference, but maybe the bar has been lowered for the Patriots so much that it's easier for them to clear 3 weeks later.
Well, I just look at this game as opposed to that one. This is a desperate Jets football team. They're all in on this season. The money that's being spent, the Hall of Fame names that are on that roster, even though they're not themselves, right? Aaron Rodgers, Devon Godchaux, some unbelievable commentary after the game on Aaron Rodgers. That guy could barely move it. He said, I believe the quote was, bleep, even I could catch him back there. So he's not Aaron Rodgers as we know him. Devontae Adams, probably the same. But they've got some great talents on both sides of the ball. And they are desperate for a win. Maybe even more desperate than you are here.
Probably. And
you drive the field, and you get down to a 4th and 1. You're inches from the goal line. And it feels like, oh boy, everything that could go wrong might when Kayshon Boutte doesn't get in there on 3rd down. And you get 4 tight ends on the field, and you get contacted at the line of scrimmage, and you bowl them over, and you score anyway. You know, that to me shows you a little something. I do give them a lot of credit for being able to, in that game, overcome, some self-inflicted wounds, some not, to be able to win it. I think that showed me a little bit of something today in terms of their football character.
I think Kayshon Boutte scored on the 3rd down play. Did you? I mean, you never got a clear shot of it, but if his knee hits there, and if his knee is down at the 1-inch line, basically, and he's got any kind of an angle with his body at all, the ball has to be at least over the goal line. You can't see it. You're at a disadvantage where you are in the press box. You don't have the same TV access.
Yeah, we had the break. We had because there was a review. We did see a couple of replays. I just don't understand why. I don't know whose call this is. I don't know how television works well enough, apparently, after having been in it for a decade.
Yeah.
Who decides when you're showing the slow motion replay, can you actually stop the video instead of just running it slow motion all the way through? When the guy's knee hits, for instance, in this situation, Just stop it on that frame and let's just take a look. As opposed to, well, I watched it 17 times, but I have no idea because my brain doesn't work that fast. Hopefully whoever's reviewing it in New York has the ability to do that, and they got the call right because they had the time to get it right. But I still couldn't tell after watching 3 or 4 replays.
Yeah, the Patriots live in that area now where whatever can go wrong will. We saw that with some of the third down penalties as well. Penalties and drops were going to be the story of this game. Drive extending penalties on third down. The bizarre thing was, as much as you want to say the Patriots got hosed on penalties, they also ducked a few. There was a hold on Christian Gonzalez that didn't get called early, and then there was the makeup call down the field. There was a running into the kicker. Anthony Jennings delivered a headshot with an elbow on the first third down of the game. I was like, what are they doing? Marcus Jones launched on that Tyler Conklin touchdown, helmet to helmet. None of those got called early on, but whatever. The bigger question I have for you is, what is the status of Drake Maye as best as you can tell? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the play itself. What's the status?
So he's in the league's concussion protocol. There's a 5-phase return to participation protocol that he has to go through and clear before he can get back on the field. Obviously, there's no set timetable for his return, but he took a hard shot to the back of the head from Jamien Sherwood, Jets linebacker. Was surprised, Tom, they didn't get him out of the game more quickly because he was very obviously slow to get up.
Yeah, they had to help him up.
I should not be surprised because the NFL's ability to use the video at their disposal to identify potential concussions and get players who might have experienced concussions out of the football game is a joke. They're awful at it. They have independent neurological consultants that are doctors that are on the sidelines with the red caps. I don't know what they do because they don't do their jobs well enough or quickly enough. We saw with Josh Allen a couple weeks ago. The guy was out cold, face down on the turf, stayed in the game, played the rest of that game. He's got people on the sidelines giving him smelling salts to wake himself back up. So they're lucky Drake Maye didn't get more seriously hurt, take another shot to the head in the next couple of plays before they actually got to him on the sideline when they felt good and ready. So good for them on that front. I just think it's a joke the way they handle that on a week-to-week basis, especially with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I'm saying
so,
as the play goes on, I'm saying, oh, he's messed up because it took a second for him to get up. And when he got up, you could see that he was foggy or at least discombobulated in a way that we don't see the kid. And I was like, he got dinged. And then you see the replay and you're like, oh, yep, he got it right there. But in real time, Phil, I don't think that it was a flaggable hit, but I don't think it was dirty. I thought that Drake Maye's slide relative to the tackler coming in was a smidge late. I think that the defender was in a position where you can say that slide was too late. He had already begun his breakdown to tackle, and Maye slid late. And when he got hit, I think there's helmet contact. I don't know if it's helmet to helmet. Maye's helmet is obviously contacted in some way, whether it was elbow or forearm, but it has to be forcible use of the helmet. He was a runner at that point. So it should have gotten a flag. I don't think it should get an ejection. Maybe it should have gotten a flag. It didn't get a flag, so I wasn't surprised. But there will probably be a significant amount of hue and cry about what a dirty hit it was. What's your opinion on it relative to mine?
Yeah, I wouldn't say dirty because I, like you, think he slid probably a little later than he could have. And because the tackler sort of already into his tackling motion when Drake Maye seemed to be getting into his slide, I wouldn't call that dirty. Is it something that could have been penalized? Yes. And I know there are people, Mayo called it questionable after the game. And I know there are people with the team who are very upset that it was not penalized, 15-yard penalty. And to me, I do think we see that hit get penalized quite frequently, but it's always from a different angle where the tackle is coming from. So yeah, we see it all the time. If a quarterback is into his slide and takes a head-on hit, helmet to helmet, that's like one of the easiest flags in the game. Like
yes,
that's
where the defender
no
is defender's coming from his own goal line toward the quarterback who has slid, and in this case, it was coming from Maye's side, kind of.
Right. And he did get, it was top of his helmet with back of Drake Maye's helmet. And it looked like a pretty good shot. I think if it was top of his helmet with Drake Maye's face mask, it probably is a penalty. So I just think the officials missed it. I do think it probably should have been penalized, but I wouldn't have called for him to be ejected, and I wouldn't call Jamie Sherwood a dirty player. I think he was just trying to make a tackle, and defenders, unfortunately for them, they get flagged for that kind of hit all the time.
Phil, the Miami Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets are all tied with 2 wins. The Dolphins are in second place in the AFC East. Patriots are in third place in the AFC East. The Jets are in fourth place now. We saw Aaron Rodgers after the game address the media. He had his hat pulled down all the way down over his eyes like a cartoon character. Just a weird guy. Here is Jets interim coach Jeff Ulbrich. Question was, what was your message to the guys in there?
This is a moment of darkness, and we understand that the outside world is going to get really loud right now. But the only thing I know in life is that when it gets dark and it gets hard, that you work and you point the finger at yourself and you look inward and you figure out, what can I do better in an individual standpoint? If we do that collectively, which I believe we will, that's your only opportunity to dig yourself out of this. That's your only opportunity to improve and fix some of these wrongs. That's where we're fortunate that the character of this locker room, I think, they're going to demonstrate who they are.
Phil, I say fat chance. Was it amusing to see this team that had Super Bowl aspirations and we all figured might be in a position to overtake the Buffalo Bills, to see them descend to a point where they're sub-Patriot already? It was a brief reign for the Jets over the Patriots, but they're already sub-Patriot.
It's just amazing to me how much worse Aaron Rodgers looks now versus the way he looked in week 3.
I know.
In week 3, he could do no wrong. He was running for first downs. He was scrambling and extending plays. He was making throws in the short area. He was making throws down the field. He did whatever he wanted that night against the Patriots. And now he's got Devon Godchaux calling him slow.
Let's listen to that right now.
It's been a precipitous decline.
Here's Devon Godchaux, slandering with a smile. It's not as bad as it reads. Slandering with a smile, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he definitely don't look the same. He just don't look like he could move back there. I could run him down and catch him. He don't look mobile at all. So
to his point, Phil, he is a shell of himself. Rodgers is. I mean, if you talk about on-field resignation, he is the personification of that.
Also, there were a few moments where, I know Keon White got at his feet on one play. I think there was another one a little bit later in the game. He seems very tentative. I mean, obviously just tore his Achilles, but he just seems a little jumpy in the pocket sometimes, and he doesn't have the athleticism to completely bail and turn those into positive plays. So he ends up just sort of scrambling backwards and throwing the ball away. I think his arm is actually still pretty live. I think he's still got a great arm, but it's the lower half, and it's the ability to, be that maestro in chaotic situations that he's been for so long that just doesn't seem to be there for him anymore. So the Patriots, who have had a hard time getting pressure on anybody these days, actually looked like they had a little juice getting after the quarterback. And I think it's because the quarterback couldn't move. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that against more athletic guys moving forward.
Well, moving forward, they're going to move into Tennessee, and I find it interesting for all the people that we both know who are Patriots fans who will make that trek down to Nashville. Boy, this is a boon for them. Because you don't want to be going on the road to see a 1-7 team down marching around Broadway, just knowing you're going to have a miserable day the next day. I mean, this gives you a chance, if you're a Patriots fan, getting down there on a Thursday night, to go strutting on down to the stage, which is my favorite Nashville musical spot. Just go strutting on down there and have yourself a good time at Tootsie's, whatever it is. It's Tootsie's, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You don't know.
They're all good there.
Go to the Johnny Cash
Honky
Museum. But do the Patriots, even with their victory Monday, even with showing up in Halloween costumes today, even with an injured starting quarterback / phenom who looked awesome when he was out there today, God bless him, do they have enough gravitas to understand that they haven't done nothing? They're not a good team. And if they want to get to 3-6, they need to bring the same level of – see, I worry about their emotional maturity, Phil. I just think that they're going to be giddy. If I was on the Patriots security staff right now, I would be sleeping with both eyes open. Can you do that? I suppose so.
I don't
Just
know.
saying, are these guys going to go out tonight and carry on someplace?
I see what you're saying.
You know?
Here's the thing. Here's what's good about this win. While you were able to get a win, the group that I think is arguably your biggest issue when it comes to that kind of thing had a bad game. So the receivers played poorly and you still won. So like you get the humble pie to the receiver group and everybody else gets a little, carrot dangled in front of them, saying basically like you're not as bad as maybe you felt you were for weeks. And I think that in
Can
some
they
ways
make
can
the
be a good
receivers
thing.
come in
Like,
tomorrow?
Oh, good question. Could it just be a receivers only group? Tyler
Receivers
Hughes,
only
maybe the
Monday.
receivers
Victory
coach?
Monday for everybody but the pass catchers.
But the receivers say no. The tight ends deserve the day off. Give the tight ends a day.
Oh,
right?
good point.
But yeah, Tyler Hughes and the receivers on the hill Monday morning. That doesn't sound like a horrible idea to me. So I don't know. This might be the best of both worlds because I don't think you want them to believe that they're as bad as they are. Do you? Because
I
that
don't know.
can lead to sort of a self-defeating, performance on Sundays
Yeah.
and just attitude and
That's a good
letting
point
go
by
of the
you.
rope.
That's a good point by you. Yeah, they haven't had so much success that you could hammer them and say you haven't done anything. We know.
Yeah, they're not. This isn't the boogeymen. This isn't the 8-0 Patriots from 2019,
Right.
who like might have got a little high on how they were performing against some not great opponents for a good chunk of the first half of that season. This is a team that needed a little positive reinforcement.
Get Ted Washington back to serve out. No, it was Adalys Thomas was humble pie. There have been some chapters here. All right, Phil, you got plenty of work ahead of you. Tomorrow you got the breakdown with Ted Johnson. Make sure you catch all of our intel on NBCSportsBoston.com. I'll have quick slants on Tuesday. Tremendous work. The Patriots are 2-6. They've improved to 2-6, and they're in third place in the AFC East. Playoffs, Phil?
I'm still gonna be a no there on the playoffs. Yeah.
All right, back to you.